T.R.O.N podcast listeners, this is your host, Rashad Woods. And today I have a very special guest who I'm honored that allowed her time to be utilized to be on this platform. She's the co-founder of the Earth organization, Barbara Wiseman. Thank you so much for your time.
Rashad, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah.
Very, very happy to be here.
You know, I have to say that your accolades kind of stopped me in my tracks a little bit when I got a chance to see all the things that you accomplished and what your organization currently does. I wanted to make sure that you get a chance to just, talk about everything that you're accomplishing and continue to do. Just give us some insight on your background, and then, if you could, about the Earth organization, please.
Okay, great. Well, in my background, I have an extremely varied background, right? That
Yes.
you would never think would end up with me doing what I'm doing right now, right?
Right.
But let me start from, grew up in New Mexico and had some amazing parents. My dad owned an airline company, but small airplanes.
Wow.
And we used to, our house was connected onto the airplane hangar.
Mhm.
And he was the only company who had a contract with the Atomic Energy Commission and
Wow.
had, when Los Alamos was still top secret, his planes were the only planes that were allowed to fly in and out of
That's
that
amazing.
high mountain area to transport, all these military generals and Oppenheimer and all these people, right?
That's
And our
unbelievable.
house was connected onto the hangar. So I got, I was really young, but I got to meet some of these people and it was just a really, really unique childhood.
Unbelievable. And
Yeah.
And your travels took you, you're currently in California right now. And so you've always been involved in public relations, you've always been consulting, and you're the executive director now. And what I found fascinating about your background is that you've always believed in this cooperative ecology that you guys utilize at the Earth organization. For the listeners of this program, and we'll get deeper into this, what exactly is cooperative ecology?
I'm glad you asked. That's a term that we actually coined and even trademarked.
Mm.
And it's a fascinating concept. It's one that most of your listeners will understand the sort of interconnectedness of life, the mutual interdependency. But cooperative ecology is basically a study of those interconnections. And it's fascinating the deeper and deeper you look into that field of just how interdependent and mutually dependent we are
Right.
with all the other life forms and the things in our own ecosystem, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So whether that ecosystem is your family, your parents, your siblings, your home, or, for kids, their school, the community, nature, everything around them, there's this incredible interdependence. So whether you're talking about the microbes in your gut, and how much are you enhancing and strengthening them,
Right.
and how much are they enhancing and strengthening you,
Right.
And so this whole study of how the world works basically is on mutual dependency and mutual support.
Right.
Whether an organism or a person or whatever is actively enhancing or and strengthening the world around him or her,
Correct.
and
Yes.
or not, really shows the value of that person in their own ecosystem.
It's amazing.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept. The more you look at it, I love getting, I'm always asking people if they come across interesting interconnections to, send them to me as examples. And
Right.
one of the most beautiful ones that I recently heard about, which I just love, is that a pregnant woman, the stem cells of a baby, which are just incredibly powerful building blocks. And so here the mother is giving life to the fetus, and the stem cells in the fetus will go to different areas of the mother's body that aren't doing well and will help build them up and strengthen them and make them healthier.
Oh, wow. I did not.
Isn't that incredible?
Absolutely. It's like the body already knows where the weaknesses are lying in itself. It sounds like out of a sci-fi movie, right? Like that, you know what I mean? Like, and here we are just functioning on a day-by-day basis, yet at the same time, in order for have a healthy baby, healthy childbirth, it's naturally doing that, instinctively, because it knows that that's where the body needs those resources. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting to me too. I mean, a completely different kind of example, but similar. For many, many, many years, people just ignored the fact that matriarchs of elephant herds would use their trunk and sort of smell and investigate the poop of the rest of the herd.
Okay.
And, that was just kind of ignored as, well, that's just what they do.
Yeah.
But
Right.
then when it was found out that she's actually smelling and perceiving what supplements, what additional minerals or vitamins
Yeah.
do they need that
Correct.
they're not getting, and then she'll move the herd to that area of
Unbelievable.
nature where they can, get more vitamin A or whatever it is that they need. I mean, it's
Right.
just fascinating.
It's their
It's
equivalent of making
fascinating.
sure they go to the healthy section of the grocery store, so to speak, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's
So,
amazing.
it's to the more I, I I decided to create this educational program that
Mhm.
we call a cooperative ecology for kids. And the reason that we decided to do that was because, I was looking at all of these different situations where you have, for example, very large chemical companies, if you will, and the majority of those people in those companies are good people. They care
Correct.
about their families. They're trying to get along in life. They're trying
Mhm.
to do good, right? And a lot of the products that come out of those companies are good products, but that
Unquestionably.
some of those products are really destructive, right? And you wonder, what is this disassociation where somebody who's creating and distributing a product like that, how could they think that that's not going to come back around
Mhm.
and cause them cancer or their kids cancer or their, right?
Right.
And so I realized in trying to resolve that or help kind of create a sea change in creating a society that's making more constructive choices,
Correct.
we realized that we could take this concept of cooperative ecology and really get kids to understand it. Kids, teenagers, for example, who in just a few years they're going to be decision makers in,
Absolutely.
these kinds of companies.
Without
And
question.
so I love the program that we put together on this. We have some educational materials and it takes them through, we've got different age groups, materials for different age groups, but it takes them through a whole series of drills, of practical application to get them to really get this concept. Not that it's just some nice theory that they learn about
Right.
in school, right? But they
Correct.
really get how it applies to them.
Mhm.
And here's how we do it. Within these books are these drills. And the first one is make a list, and every drill is 4 steps, right? And
Okay.
the first step is, and the first drill is make a list of everything your mom does for you that makes your life better, happier, or safer,
Oh, wow.
right?
Yeah.
And then step 2 is good. Now make a list of everything you do for your mom that makes her life better, happier, or safer, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to go, wow, look how much longer your mom's list is. The kids actually, it's amazing. They immediately start to get it, right?
Right.
Then
Right.
step 3 is good. Now think of something you could do for your mom
Mhm.
that would make her life better, happier, or safer, and go
Right.
do it, right?
Absolutely. Right.
And then step 4 is good. Now step back and just take a look. Did your own life get better in any way as a result of doing that for your mom?
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yes.
So then we do the same 4 steps on their dad. Make a list of everything your dad does for you that makes your life better, happier, safer.
Yeah.
Make a list of everything you do for your dad that makes his life better, happier, safer. Go think of something you could do for your dad, that'll make his life better, happier, safer. Go do it.
Okay.
And then did your own life get better as a result?
Wonderful.
Then we have them do the same 4 steps on at least one of their siblings, right? That one's always really interesting,
That's
right?
a
What
good
does your
question.
older sister do for you?
It's a loaded question. If you ever want
But at
honesty,
the
ask a kid, though, right? If you ever want something to be totally honest, always ask a kid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was very cute. We did that with one little boy stands out in my mind where he was 11 years old and he could not think of anything that his sister did for him that made his life better, right? And so on step 3, he decided that he would wash the dishes for her so she
Oh,
didn't have to
wonderful.
do it one night. That was his step 3. And when
Yes.
I asked him, good, did your own life get better as a result of doing that. And he said it was really nice not to have an angry sister.
See, but as long as but you still made him think. You still pushed him
Yes,
to try to find something out of that situation.
exactly.
That's the most important.
Then we do the same 4 steps on their home. What does your home do for you that
Hmm.
makes your life better, happier, safer? What do you do for your home that makes it a better, happier, safer place to be,
Right.
etc.? Then we have them do it on a teacher
Hmm.
and then on their
One.
school. That's always
And it keeps
really interesting.
expanding past their circle, right? So you're consistently like it doesn't just stop with one because people can they have to start thinking really detailed about things.
Yeah. And their school is in their ecosystem. That is a part of their life. It's one of the dynamic parts, important parts of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have them do it on something in the community,
Mhm.
and they can pick whatever that is. It could be a grocery store, it could be an after school program, it could be,
Right.
a community center, it could be a church,
Right.
whatever they want, and go through those same 4 steps with that. Then we have them go out into nature
Oh.
and do the same thing on something in nature, a park, a trail, whatever, a lake, and
Right.
do the same 4 steps. And then the final drill of that particular set is that we then have them go out in nature and just pick 2 things that are close to each other and then look at them really closely. Like, what
Mhm.
is that tree? Can you see anything that tree is doing for those ants? And are
Yeah.
those ants
Yeah.
doing anything for the tree?
Right.
Right?
Right. Right.
And the whole process of this, at the end of it, they really begin to
Interconnected.
get how this applies to them.
Yes.
Again, not just some nice theory, but
Right.
actually how it applies to them. And begins to see that the things they do come
Impact.
back around and
Right.
either make their life better or worse.
Yes, and everything is really interconnected, right? So when you start from the home, you keep expanding slightly outward, and then it becomes how everything impacted everything that you did, and then it makes you
Right.
start thinking, okay, what does that tree? To your point, how is that impacting that animal in that forest? And when I heard of your organization, and I say this very respectfully, people can sometimes think that people who are trying to make an ecosystem better are not realistic about the political and social dynamics that are trying to do such a thing, right? That does not mean that there shouldn't be hunting. That does not mean that every animal in every situation is a case. It's a case by case basis. This is your field of work, not mine. But it's a very, very delicate balance that you probably have to deal with nature, governments, social political avenues, as well as geographical locations of how do you navigate all
Well, it is interesting. It's a really good question.
that?
The whole reason that I originally got into this field, one was, well, I'll get into that a little bit later because it's a super interesting story of
Yeah.
who my co-founder was. But how we navigate it is we've got a 6-step standard operating procedure
Okay.
that we take any environmental situation that we are interested in possibly taking on, we walk through,
Hmm.
right? And the first step is, let's say we've been hearing about some environmental situations through the media, and we're all going to die next week if we don't handle this.
Right.
And right, and just super alarmism and a lot of generalities
The
and
headline grabbers.
no solutions. The solutions are, get rid of people,
Right.
right? Which is no solution at all. Yeah. So the first step of our 6-step process is we research to find out first and foremost, does that situation actually even exist?
Right.
Or is it just some other thing being
For sure.
promoted in the media, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if it does exist and it's important enough that we feel we want to take it on, then step 2 is we research it thoroughly to find out what is the honest to God source of the problem. And
Right.
it's never what's being promoted. It's always at least somewhat different, and a lot of times completely different is the actual source. Then step 3 is once we found the source, then we find a solution that works for everybody involved, not just the spotted owl, right? Not
Yeah.
just, one vested interest, but
Right.
what works for everybody: people, jobs,
Yeah.
economy, business and industry, as well as nature.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
It's
Then
got to be.
step 4,
It's amazing.
sorry,
These are amazing steps, by the way. Amazing steps.
cool. Cool. Yeah. They're just very logical. It's just very step by step logical, right? So, step four then is we then get that solution implemented. And depending on what the situation is, we either implement it ourselves, as in this, this whole co-eco education program is based on a lot of research done about like how can we actually get more people engaged in understanding and making better decisions.
Yeah.
But environmentally, it's very fundamental.
Hmm.
But or in getting a solution implemented, we may get it into the hands of another organization that will do so competently, so
Got it.
we can go on and do the next, to the next issue.
Right, right.
Then step five is we create educational materials based on whatever that situation was, to create, based on all the lessons learned from steps one to four, right? And
Yes,
then step six is just rinse, repeat. Go find the next environmental situation and
for
put
sure.
it through those same set of steps. The whole reason I got involved in this area in the first place is because when I stepped back and looked at what was going on, there was so much false data being purveyed. There was so much alarmism
It's
being
unbelievable.
purveyed.
It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
and so much like, people with the best of intentions just listening to the media, just listening to, being kind of led by the nose in a lot of ways down
Right,
pathways, thinking they were doing the right thing, and then trying to implement solutions that either weren't going to solve it at all and usually ended up being the next problem you had to solve.
for sure.
Right.
Sure.
So yeah, I just saw so much of that going on that I decided to get into the field.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so I didn't mean to cut you off, but it seems like, I can only imagine, what works well in one state, and this is just in 50 states in the country, right? What works well in Michigan would not work well in Oklahoma, would not work well in Boston, Massachusetts. There could be a particular species that you have to navigate state, local, even federal lands. All these things have to be encompassed to make a decision. And this research, I'm imagining, can take quite some time.
Absolutely. It absolutely can, depending on the complexity. I mean, sometimes we'll take something on where it's just like, things fall into place really fast. But other times it takes years and years and years to walk through those steps,
Right.
definitely. So, yeah, it's fascinating. And every different area tends to be quite complex, with a lot of different factors, particularly when you're looking for solutions that work for everyone, right? Then there's a lot of different factors to look at to figure it out. But
Right.
it's fun. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have found that just continues to amaze me is that there's always a solution.
That is very true. That is 100% true. You're absolutely
Yeah.
correct.
So it's never like an impossible thing to fix. And it's always a solution that can be implemented. Not some big thing that's going to destroy mankind or wipe out some industry or something like that. There are solutions that can be brought to bear that do work for everyone.
Well, obviously there are industries that are heavily dependent on the status quo, and and we are dependent on them as people as well too. There's a great show on Paramount. It's called Landman. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's
No.
Billy Bob Thornton. So he's talking to he's an oil executive, kind of like the field operations manager, so to speak. And then there's a woman that drives an electrical vehicle, and she's they have contrasting personalities. She's the attorney that came from out of state, and she's saying, I don't understand this industry. And then he gives a really good speech in one of the episodes about how you have to drill to get these electric batteries. The oil's powering the wind turbines. It's in your toothpaste. It's in your trash bag. And he goes down a laundry list of items of everyday use. And he's sitting back and saying, well, you want my industry to go the way of the dodo, so to speak, yet all the things you utilize on a day by day basis are directly related to my industry.
Yeah.
You know?
It's utterly naive and unworkable to, be, at least so far, to be trying to take out the oil industry. It's ridiculous. It's
Right.
absolutely ridiculous. But there are other solutions. I'll give you a great example.
Would love to hear it.
Yeah. During the BP oil spill, which was as bad as it was way worse than what the media was.
I've heard that. I have heard that.
It was really incredible.
That's crazy.
So, uh, so I went into the Gulf states and I spent a bunch of time there, and I wasn't looking for a single solution
Mhm.
to clean up the oil, right? I was looking for any solutions that would work that we could advocate for and help these companies who were really having trouble with a very, very corrupt EPA at that time, very corrupt.
Can only imagine.
And so all these solutions, there were over 100,000 solutions that were offered up. I
Unbelievable.
mean, everything from mushrooms that soak up the oil, to God knows. I mean, it was just like unbelievable, the tsunami.
Yeah.
But most people didn't know that there's something called the NCP list, the
Okay.
National Contingency Plan list. And for you to be used, even to be considered, for your product to be considered when an actual spill happens, you have to already be on that list. If you're not on the list, you could have the greatest product in the world.
Wow.
They won't even look at it, right?
Nuts.
So, yeah. So, so there were at that time I think about 100 products on that list. So as soon as I found out about that list and that nothing else could be considered, then it was a matter of vetting the products that were on that list to see which ones are the best ones, which
Right.
ones could we
Right.
advocate for, right?
Right.
So, long story short, and I have this very, very simple, logical list of guidelines of here's the kind of products we're looking for. It have to have these basic guidelines. One, it has to be something it's a company that has the manufacturing capability
Right.
to produce, what's needed to handle this,
Absolutely. Without
right? It
question.
can't be somebody with a couple of gallons in their garage, that they made up.
Unfortunately, those people
It
exist
had,
too. You know,
what was that?
when money gets passed out, unfortunately, those bad actors start rearing their heads too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The other things, some of the other things on our list of common sense guidelines is that it couldn't be toxic, couldn't make things worse.
Correct.
It had to be affordable. It had to be something that actually was a viable, workable product. It had to have a track record of success. Just some common sense basics like that, right?
Right.
And it had to actually clean the oil up.
Right.
It couldn't be something where it just transferred the problem somewhere else.
Correct.
I wasn't interested in sponges that soaked up the oil, but then transferred it to another place,
Correct.
right? Where it would just make that area more toxic. So, much to my shock, there was only one product on that whole list that actually fit all our guidelines.
One product. Oh my goodness.
One product,
That's
right? But the good news was that there was one product. There was at least one, right?
yes.
And it was this phenomenal product called Oil Spill Eaters 2, OSE2.
Oh,
And it's enzymatic. It does exactly what nature does to clean up an oil spill. But whereas nature would take like over a century or more to clean up that spill, this could have cleaned it up in the matter of a few weeks. I mean, it was just unbelievably effective.
it's incredible.
So then we had to find out why was the EPA playing every dirty trick in the book to prevent it from being utilized,
I can only
and
imagine.
why was the only product that the EPA was allowing to be used is this product called Corexit, which is unbelievably toxic. It's 50 times when you combine it with the oil, it makes the oil 50 times as toxic as if you'd done nothing.
Oh my
It
gosh.
would, yeah, it causes mutations, it causes cancer, it causes birth defects. I mean, it's just this horrifically toxic, terrible thing. But the one benefit it had for the EPA and for the oil companies is that within 30 minutes of coming in contact with the oil,
Yeah.
it sinks it beneath the surface where you can't see it.
So no, yeah, it's like cleaning your room before your parent comes in. You didn't fix the problem, right? You just shoved the clothes.
Right.
Right.
Where the
Mom's
plates
office.
got shoved under.
That's all she wrote. Just shoved them under the bed. Don't look. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Wow. So it was a
But this made it so much worse because when the oil's on the surface, at least you can gather up a portion of it or some of it, soak up some
right.
of it and move it to landfill or something. But this stuff makes it 50 times as toxic, and then spreads it throughout, takes it off the top,
Oh,
spreads throughout the entire water column. And
oh,
so the amount of wildlife
killed.
that were annihilated, right? And
Unbelievable.
then, oh my God, it was just such a horrible, horrible scene.
I remember about that as a kid. I remember the incident as a kid.
Yeah, it was bad. We never were able to get the EPA to allow it to be used on the spill. But interestingly, we wrote a paper
Oh,
on it. Yeah, we wrote a paper on it. We compared it to this other, to Corexit, showing how, here's this great solution, and how about we use this instead? And that paper has been a part of helping to get that technology now used in 70 other countries around the world to clean up massive oil spills, right?
that's amazing. That's and that's got to be a tricky one to navigate because nobody wants to have it's such a booming industry. It has so many different jobs to it, and ultimately, usually you find out in government, and this is certainly not a political show. Usually, the person running a section of government used to work for a large corporation themselves and just came across the street, right? So now you have kind of what you call a conflict of interest where you're not really trying to go after your friend or your former board member, and it gets very difficult to kind of police yourself in that regard.
Yeah. Well, this particular event was interesting in terms of our involvement because we're not anti-oil companies,
Correct.
right? We wanted to find a solution that worked for them as well, right? Because without that, it wasn't going to get implemented.
Right.
Interestingly, there were BP scientists that were shown this technology
Mhm.
and they got really interested in it and wanted to use it. But the EPA wouldn't let them.
That's incredible. That's absolutely that's insane to me.
Yeah,
Right? That's
it
insane.
was insane. But follow the money,
Yeah.
because there's another oil company that owned Corexit over, the past, since the Exxon Valdez. They had managed to get the EPA to allow them to have a total monopoly
Yeah.
on oil spill cleanup. So all oil
Of
companies
course.
will stockpile
Yeah.
this horrible product. But because it's stockpiled, when a spill happens, that's all they've got.
Exactly.
And that's all the EPA will allow to be used. So why would they stockpile anything else?
Unbelievable.
Right. But yeah, but then we even had to research and find out where was the money changing hands, and it was definitely changing hands.
I mean, it's definitely, and not only that though. I'm sure that there's some very powerful lobbyists involved with that particular product and other products as
Yeah,
well too. Because when you
yeah,
watch the news and I mean, there's lots of smart people, far smarter than me. I'm just a host on on this podcast and get your time. But it'd be naive of anybody to suggest that all of the people who are smart who plan for these particular events don't have solutions that they plan 5, 10 years advance or of very severe situations that are saying this particular item works and then somebody stonewalling it, whether it's a senator, whether it's at the federal level, the state level. It gets very, very nuanced when you realize the inner workings of the quote unquote machine at work, so to speak.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true.
That's terrible. That's really terrible.
But I think it's interesting viewpoint, and kind of unique in the environmental world
Mhm.
for the Earth Organization to have this viewpoint that we want to help business and industry. We
Right,
want, mankind is basically good and primarily
right,
wants to do the right thing. If they don't know how to do the right thing, or they don't have the resources to do the right thing,
correct,
then you end up with a lot of bad choices, and destructive environmental effects get created.
right.
Um, you asked me, uh, kind of how I got started in this.
Mhm.
And let me tell you about my co-founder, because he was such an amazing person. His
Dr.
name was
Lawrence Anthony, right?
That's right. That's right. So Lawrence owned a wildlife preserve in South Africa, and he was world renowned for two things primarily. The first was that he was the man that went into Baghdad at the beginning of the war in 2003 and rescued the Baghdad Zoo. So
Oh,
when
wow.
everybody else was, yeah, when everybody else was fleeing, when the tanks were rolling into the coalition forces were rolling into Baghdad. They couldn't believe it, but Lawrence managed to get into Baghdad, and he ended up staying there for 6 months in the middle of this war zone, protecting and rebuilding the habitat for the Baghdad Zoo.
That's unbelievable.
And it's an incredible story. I highly recommend the best-selling book that he wrote about it called Babylon's Ark. And you can get it on Amazon. And it's just a fabulous story. And in the middle of that, 2 months after he first got there, four of the top environmental groups in the world showed up to help. And even with the best of intentions, they didn't know what to do. So they just became a problem.
Oh my.
And the only thing they did that was positive is they brought in a truckload of supplies for the animals. And so when they first arrived, the zoo staff were, practically dancing in the street. Within 4 days after they'd been there, everybody wished they had never come
Mm.
because they were there just to get media to
Right.
show their millions of members that they were there. They raised
What?
millions of dollars off the back of the incident, and not a dollar of that went to the zoo and what Lawrence
That's
was trying to get
crazy.
done. They took credit for what he was doing, and then they left, right?
Once the cameras left, right? Once the cameras left. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
So he was pretty disappointed in what he saw. And at that time, I was the executive director of a good sized management consulting company in California. And he and I were good friends. And
Mhm.
so he asked me if I would help him start a nonprofit that would be dedicated to finding and implementing real solutions
Right.
to environmental issues and conservation issues.
Right.
So that's where we started. But
Wonderful stuff.
another thing that he was known for, which was just amazing, is that he had rescued a herd of wild elephants that were going to be put down. They
That's
were,
amazing.
yeah, they were traumatized as a herd. It was the remnants of two herds that had been culled and killed and sold off for circuses and that sort of thing. And so they hated humans, and they were
Oh,
tromping around their area of Africa, and it being very, very dangerous, turning over jeeps and tromping through villages and stuff, right? So one day Lawrence got a call from a friend saying, look, there's this herd of troublesome elephants, and we're going to put them down, but we understand that you wanted to repopulate your preserve in your area with elephant. If you want them, we'll give them to you. You just have to pay for their shipping.
not
So there
exactly
were
sending a UPS package,
so,
right?
so there were seven of them, seven
Oh
elephants.
my gosh.
And so, long and beautiful story short, he got them to the game reserve. But the story is so incredible
Mm.
because he hired this elephant expert who turned out not to be much of an expert on elephants, right? But he hired her, and so she told him, okay, you have to put them into a huge corral, electric fence, cut down all the trees so they can't, because they knew that these elephants knew how to push a tree over onto an electric fence and short it out.
Dang.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
so she came and she directed them. They built this huge corral before the elephants arrived, and there was one big tree in the middle of it. She said, no, you don't have to cut that one down. That's too big. They can't push that over. And so they get them into this corral, and she said, you have to leave them here for at least 3 months and let them just acclimate to the area. Make sure they have food, but otherwise leave them completely alone.
Yeah.
Let them acclimate, and then you'll be able to let them out into the larger game preserve. So they arrive this one night. The next morning, they're gone. And it turned out that
Carry the tree.
they went after that one. They pushed it over, shorted out the fence, escaped. And then, get this, they
Unbelievable.
went to the outer game preserve, which is about 26 kilometers, right? They went there, that was also had electric fence, and they couldn't find they didn't have any trees near the fence
Yeah.
to short it out. So they traced back a mile into the game preserve to find the green box that sourced the electricity to the fence, and they stomped it into the ground, and they
Wow.
escaped,
That's how
right?
much they knew. This is some Jurassic Park type
Unbelievable.
stuff, to be honest with you. Like that's something you just like legitimately like I'm in my head like Oh, they really don't do that. It's like, no, they knew exactly where to look for it. They knew exactly. They had been, you know,
They could must perceive the electricity or something, the flow
unbelievable.
or something that they could find it.
You
But the
got to be.
story gets even better.
Mm-hmm.
So it took them 3 days to find them. And they were headed straight back in the direction of their old home, right,
Mm-hmm.
where they had been brought from. And this helicopter pilot managed to, herd them back, got them turned and herd them back. And they got them into the now heavily fortified, treeless corral, right?
Right.
And Lawrence fired the elephant expert. She'd
Of
been wrong on a
course.
bunch of different things, right? And he just went, I've got to get these elephants because he was told by other game rangers if they get out again, we're putting them down. They're too
Sure.
dangerous,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So he just went, I'm their last hope here. And they have to learn to trust at least one person and settle down. So he set up a tent and a little camp right next to the corral.
Oh
And he
wow.
lived with them 24 hours a day and just went, I'm just going to live here with these elephants just out of their reach, right? But until they settle down. And for 3 weeks, they were charging around and
Oh, that's
trumpeting
so
and
intimidating.
kicking up
Oh my gosh.
dirt. And oh my God, they're huge, right?
Couldn't even imagine. Couldn't even
Yeah.
imagine.
So
Couldn't even.
he would walk around the outside of the corral, again, far enough away where they couldn't get to him, and he would sing, and just talk to them and stuff. And people would ask him, well, what did you talk to them about? And he'd say, mathematics, Bob Dylan, whatever came to mind.
That's crazy.
After 3 weeks, all of a sudden he described it as though somebody had just turned the hostility light off. It just went boom. And the
Yeah.
matriarch, they calmed down, and the matriarch came over to the fence and reached her trunk out to him through the fence. And he backed off, of course, right? Because before she would have got him and pulled him in and killed him.
Oh my gosh.
So he backed off. So she walked around the corral a little bit more, and then she came back again, reached out to him again. And he
Yeah.
backed off the second time. Same thing. The third time, he just stood his ground and she just stroked his chest with her trunk.
Like, you finally get me. You finally get me. I'm finally comfortable with you. You finally
Yeah,
understood where I was coming from, where you can't,
yeah,
right. You calmed the area. Like, you decompressed the situation. That's
yeah.
amazing.
So he immediately went, okay, again, the elephant expert had said leave them there for 3 months. He went, no, we've done what we can do. He immediately let them out into the larger preserve. And they went straight back to the electric fence around the large preserve. And they walked the entire 26 kilometers with the matriarch's trunk 3 inches below the electric wire, looking for a break in the fence, right?
Yeah.
And when they couldn't find one, that was it. They
Yeah.
never tried to break out again. Yeah. So
And that's the part
then,
of understanding the environment that's around you.
yeah, story gets better.
I can't wait to hear it.
So 2 weeks later, Lawrence and his wife they had this charming thatched roof cottage on the game preserve, and they were in bed and they heard something on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And Lawrence thought it must be a leopard. So middle of the night, he very carefully opens the door to see what's going on. And the whole herd was standing there. And what they'd heard is that they were eating the thatch out of the roof, right?
Yeah.
But they had come to see him.
That's
And
amazing. That's
and
amazing.
the matriarch had been pregnant when the herd arrived, and she'd had her baby, and she pushed her baby in front of her to show Lawrence her new baby, right?
That's insane. That is absolutely, this hostile animal that was close to getting put down wants to show off
Yeah,
her baby in front of Lawrence.
yeah.
That's incredible.
So the story, it just got better and better and better. Over time, it got so that every single time he went away on a trip, the whole herd would magically show up at his house the night he returned. Every single time. I saw it twice myself because we take people on safaris as a fundraising mechanism and as an educational mechanism for
Yeah.
right once a year we take a group of people down on safaris. So two of the times when we were at on their preserve,
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence would have been out of town and I would arrive a few days early and he
Mm-hmm.
would come back on the same day. And lo and behold, a few hours later, here would come the herd
That's
to see
unbelievable.
him.
Waiting for his return to say hi to their friend.
Incredible.
That's
What
amazing.
One time he missed his flight and they came as far as the garden gate and then perceived that he wasn't there and left. And the next night when he arrived, they came back. So then the
Wow.
story is like
It's
just
touching.
so amazing because
Tou-
it gets even better from here. Sort of. It gets more interesting, let me put it that way. Lawrence passed away in 2012, and he was 300 miles away from the game preserve, and the elephants were about 12 miles from the house, and they perceived that he died and they walked in mourning to the house and
oh,
they stayed around the house for several hours in obvious distress.
oh my
And
goodness.
then they did something that Lawrence told me a herd will do when a member of the herd dies. They will go into mourning and they will just, for a few days, they just disappear. These gigantic, huge
Yeah.
creatures.
Yeah.
The game rangers, they just disappear into the bush, right? Game
Yeah.
rangers can't find them. And after a few days, they come out, life goes on. But he said every year they'll come back to where the elephant died and they'll like move the bones around. And it's almost like a ceremony or something,
Yeah.
right? And they'll do that year after year
It's
around the
amazing.
same time yeah. And until the bones are just dust.
Correct.
For 4 years, the herd returned to his house on the anniversary of his death.
The fact that they even know that time was even eclipsed, right? How what how do they have respect of time that they have a good they have a time period that they know that that's the anniversary of his passing. That is incredible.
Isn't that it's
That's
incredible?
incredible.
If your viewers want to read the whole story, he wrote another best-selling book called The Elephant Whisperer. That's what his publishers wanted him to call it. He was very humble and he went like they were the ones doing the whispering. I just listened, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the publisher went, no, this is a great title. You have to call it The Elephant Whisperer. And the media actually dubbed him that.
That's amazing.
But the story is told beautifully in that book, the whole relationship and how
Hmm.
it came to be and how it developed.
That's
But it's such a measure of the man too.
yeah, that is who goes into Baghdad to save the ant? I mean, because I think oftentimes when we see a cataclysmic event or live, something, very, very large that takes place, we're not thinking about the environmental impact, right? We think about the human impact, obviously, is
Yeah,
very important. But then,
yeah,
when the cameras leave or what you're looking at, the sustainable ecosystem around that. And so
yeah,
that's where your organization comes in. And so, and continues to do. One of the things I did have a question about, which I found completely fascinating, was that you find water resources in areas that on paper should not have it available to
right.
get it. That's incredible. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, would love to, would love
Yeah,
to. Again, that remember the 6-step process of how we take something on and research it and find this solution. If you look at a map of the world showing the deserts,
yeah,
and over the past 50 years, there's been an incredible increase in deserts. And they call it desertification
mm-hmm.
as deserts are expanding. It has to do with a wide variety of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, it has to do with a wide variety of things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it has to do with over chemicals, too many chemicals in farming
Yes.
that are just creating dust
I didn't
bowls
even think
after,
about that.
right?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So that is a major, major source of it.
Yes.
So that has to get handled. If you
Okay.
look at a map, you'll go like, "Oh my God!" Around the world,
Yeah.
this is a real situation. And so, um, water is becoming. I'm sure you've heard, water is becoming, being fought over. A lot of the wars going on in the Middle East and that sort of
Yes.
thing been
Right.
fought over water,
Yes.
right? Not religion, water. Farmers in the American Southwest and ranchers are having a
Droughts all the time.
terrible time.
Yes.
Terrible time. Yeah.
Yes. They had to
The
fly in water
droughts.
into the Arizona, to the Grand Canyon because the water levels were getting so low, right? You don't hear about stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. So we started researching this and I came across online this theory that I immediately went, oh my God, if this is true, without any exaggeration whatsoever, this is the solution to the world's access to fresh water problem,
Right.
right?
Right. Yes.
it was absolutely phenomenal. And so I hired some scientists
Yeah.
and we started researching this to see, was this true?
Yeah.
And the more we've looked, the more it really looks like it is absolutely true. And the more we've applied it and the solutions, it's been phenomenal. But let me back up a little bit. I'll explain what this theory is. So if you ask by far the majority of scientists this question, if 5 billion years ago this planet was hot molten lava, where did all that water come from? It
That's a
now
very good
covers
question,
over
actually.
70% of the planet
That's very
deeply.
good.
Where did that come from? They will tell you that it all came from meteors from outer space.
Okay.
Correct response. That look on your face was the correct response. It's like, that makes no sense whatsoever.
It doesn't.
Just looking at the volume of it,
Yeah.
right? It just makes no sense.
It doesn't.
So back in the 1930s, there was a man by the name of Stephen Rees, and Rees was a geologist. He was, before Hoover became president, his family gained their wealth from mining. And as you go deeper and deeper into the planet, the increased pressure will actually prevent, there's a demarcation point beyond which water from the surface can't trickle down. It doesn't matter whether it's stopped by hard rock or not. It can't go past that point because the pressure just keeps, prevents it. So they were drilling these mines that were far below that demarcation point.
Oh, wow.
And they were these extremely valuable silver mines. They'd hit into some rocks and water would start pouring out and it would drown out the entire mine before they could even pump it out. So
Wow.
he went, this one paradigm of this all came from outer space, doesn't make sense in that paradigm either, because it
Right.
can't get to this surface.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So he actually postulated, if you will, and it appears to be completely valid, that the planet actually makes water. And it makes it in the magma, in the lava area right beneath the surface, right?
Yeah.
And the intense heat and pressure creates a synthesis between hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah.
And then it turns it into gaseous form. And because of all the pressure, it then pushes it up through any cracks or fissures that it can find in the Earth's surface
Yeah.
to the surface.
That's
And
amazing.
once it hits the surface, then it goes into what we all learned about in high school, the hydrologic cycle,
Yeah.
driven by the sun, evaporates,
Yeah.
comes down in snow and rain, trickles through loose soil down into shallow aquifers, and round it goes.
Yeah.
But there are just everywhere
Mhm.
these cracks and fissures
Enough of it to take place
where
the entire time that it brings that much water to the surface.
that's right.
Right.
And a lot of these cracks and fissures don't come all the way to the surface, but they come close enough to the surface to be able to access them. And interestingly, he postulated from all of his research, and it has since been proven to be true with
That's amazing.
what we call remote sensing equipment.
That's
There
amazing.
is literally 5 times as much fresh water accessible in that area of the planet as there is in the oceans on the surface.
Really?
5 times as much as the oceans, right?
Right.
So it turns out that there's never been a scarcity of fresh water on the planet. There's only been a scarcity of the knowledge of how to find these fissures and cracks that are bringing it up, right?
That's
And that
amazing.
water that's never been on the surface before
Yeah.
tends to be extremely good quality water because it's not polluted.
Correct. Correct. That's what I was about to say. It's never been really. There's been nothing that else has had contact with it. It has no other
Yeah.
environmental or human pollutions into it. That's amazing.
So now if it's coming up through a salt dome or something like that, it might be too saline, or you have to it's not all just pure
Correct.
drinking water. But what is phenomenal is, very long story short, because we've been working on this for 9 years now,
Yeah.
is that actually 10, I just realized, is that the Earth Organization owns a proprietary technology that makes it possible to find those fissures.
That's insane.
So
That's
we can go out into the desert,
yeah.
right? In an area where other geologists will insist no water can be found, and they've failed to do so repeatedly. And we can't find water that's not there,
Right.
right? But if there are any of these fissures or cracks at an accessible depth, we can find them
That's
with
amazing.
100% success.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So we've been doing projects all throughout the American Southwest for farmers and ranchers, finding water for them.
Right. It's got to be a
And we just,
godsend for those farmers. It has to be an absolute godsend.
it absolutely is. It absolutely is. There's a project that we just, the drilling hasn't happened yet, but we have such a success, we
Mm-hmm.
have a 100% success rate.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is completely unheard of in the drilling for water industry. It's usually between 40, 50, maybe 60%.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means is that 40 to 60% of the time, the landowner, the farmer, the rancher drills a very expensive
Yes.
dry borehole and they get nothing for it, but they still
Right.
have to pay for the hole that the driller drilled.
Right.
Or they'll hit into water either that's inadequate, it's not enough for what they need, or they hit saline water, which is bad as having a dry borehole because you can't use it,
Yeah.
right?
Unbelievable.
So our tech is so precise and it takes, it's a very, very in-depth process,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so precise that when we're done with our analysis of a property, we can literally pinpoint for a driller.
Exactly.
Don't drill 20 feet away over there, drill right here.
Yes.
And we can tell them precisely how deep to
Mm.
drill to hit the water. We can estimate the volume that they're going to get,
Unbelievable.
right? And we can tell them before they start drilling if it's saline or not. So it
Saving
takes all the risk.
all of the risk, all of the guesswork, and tells them
Yeah,
exactly pinpointed location where it's at. That is
yes,
amazing.
it is. It is just the importance of it can't be overstated. And it is so thrilling every single time. I started to tell you where we finished the analysis on a property just a couple of weeks ago in Arizona for a ranch. The manager of the ranch was desperate for water, more water, absolutely skeptical,
Mm-hmm.
because she'd had three other hydrogeologists come in and go, no, you can't, you have to truck your water in, no water here. And but I talked her into, having us do this.
Yeah.
And she was hoping against all hope that she could get 60 gallons per minute because that would refill a big reservoir that she's got, a reservoir pond, and it would have solved their problems. Plus, it would have been enough
Mm-hmm.
to completely restore a habitat of about 20 miles from her ranch down to a lake where spillover
Wow.
from that pond used to spill over and created habitat for the wildlife and the free range cattle and everything done.
That's
But
amazing.
over
That's
the past
amazing.
6 years, it's gone so dry that the
Mm-hmm.
that the thing had totally dried up, right? Anyway, we found two sites on her property for the driller to drill.
Mm-hmm.
We told her exactly how deep,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that she's going to get at least 400 to 600 gallons per minute.
That's insane.
Yeah,
That's absolutely incredible. That's absolutely
yeah.
incredible. You guys are absolutely. This is the reason why I started this show was because you don't see commercials about organizations like this. You don't see, you have to be able to talk to people like yourself to know that things like this are available. And when you hear about the Earth Organization, I'll just call it for what it is. People think of tree hugging, right? Like, oh, they're an earthy organization. They are people who eat. I'm saying that very respectfully, right? It's not
No, I
about
totally understand. It's
people.
why, yeah.
The people would say that not knowing that I am helping the farmer, I am helping the rancher, I am finding water resources. I do,
Yeah,
we do work with the oil industry to know that they do have a value commodity, but they also have contingency plans in place for cleanup and environmental and business and jobs and creation. And you balance all that
exactly.
immaculately. It's amazing. I'm still stunned. I'm hearing about this.
Oh, that's great.
I
That's
really
great. Well, I have to tell you, we need help. We
okay.
need help. We need, we have different levels of membership and donations.
Yeah.
We're a nonprofit and we really, really need a lot more support to be able to expand these programs that we're doing and our work. But it's,
This is incredible.
I'm so proud of the work that we're doing. And I know Lawrence would be so proud
I
to
can only
see,
imagine.
what we're doing in his name. And
This is
so,
It's incredible
Please,
stuff.
if any of your viewers want to get involved and help support us, we're looking for volunteers. We're also looking for, more donations and members.
I think one of the most incredible things was, to be able to actually have time out of your schedule with it's still, I feel like in an hour, I still haven't done justice to what your organization does, what your accomplishments are, and what you're going to continue to do. And so I will certainly make sure that when this episode comes out, that it's promoted to the best of its ability, that there's a link to your organization, and that the clips, reflect exactly what your work and what you do. Because, at the end of the day, no matter what walk of life you come from, you do have to live here, right? And you have to, we're a shared space. Whether people,
Right.
regardless of whatever people feel about certain things, you do have to breathe the same air as me. You know what I mean? So we do. We have to breathe the same air.
Exactly. And our kids, are
Yeah,
we want them all to survive and thrive
absolutely.
and do even better than we've done.
That's amazing work. So, just real quick, I always ask this of every guest. The Earth Organization, where can people, obviously, they don't need the show, but for the purpose of this episode, where can they find Barbara Wiseman and the work that you do?
They should go to our website. It's not www, it's https://, the
Yeah.
typical start, right? And then don't forget the word the earthorganization.org.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Very much.
the earthorganization.org.
Yeah. I loved going to the website, by the way, too. I'm a huge fan of reading history, the world around me, and our world is much bigger than the street we drive down and the billboards that we see and our day to day, activities. It can get very narrow of what the world really truly is. And you've opened up my eyes to everything that's available to look at, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Rashad. Thank you so much. Why, just, I think the most important message that I would give your listeners is it's so important to get curious.
Yes.
It's so important to look for yourself and not just listen, because
Yes.
there's so much false data out there.
Absolutely.
I talked about at the beginning of the show, like how much alarmism I was seeing. It's not that there aren't very serious environmental situations going on that need to be handled,
Hmm.
but they can be handled.
Right.
But people have to step up and do something, right?
Right.
And but there are solutions, and they're not painful solutions,
Yeah.
right? There are real solutions that work for everyone, that make things better, or at least don't make things worse. Unless somebody really has purposefully destructive intentions,
Correct.
our solutions aren't going to work for them.
Exactly.
Those are the ones that complain bitterly, because it's making things better.
Yeah, but it's weird. Those people are strange, and that's why they're not guests on this show. There's a reason why.
And that's a good thing. And
No,
that's a good thing.
I have no interest in that. So, but I've always been a curious person, and this is obviously the manifestation of curiosity, which is why it's the randomness from nothing. Whether it's a business owner, whether it's a member of the military, whether it's an Earth environment organization such as yours, this is why I created this show, to be able to bring these things to light and be able to be more educated and ultimately be a better person of this earth, to be a better steward of the environment around me. So I want to thank you for that. I'm very appreciative.
Oh, Rashad, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
This is top of the food chain for me, so I'm very appreciative. Thank you, Barbara Wiseman.
Oh, that's great. Well, you'll have to join us on one of our eco safaris to Africa.
And sign me up. Sign this guy up. No questions asked. You have my number. You have my email address. You don't have to ask. I don't sign me up, please.
Well, my goodness. Well, we've got one happening. Our next one is in May next year,
Okay.
2026.
Okay.
Right?
We will absolutely be in touch. Man, that's incredible.
Fantastic. Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank
We've
you.
got a few more places in the group to fill, so
Oh
we'd
man.
love to have you.
That would be on my bucket list. I mean, this is incredible just thinking about that. We'll be talking off camera, but sign me up, please.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I'm really appreciative. I could talk for days. I'm the kid that the teachers always told to shut up, by the way. So this is great. Just keeping it real.
And I hope you didn't follow their instructions.
Clearly, I didn't.
Except to listen, but you're a good listener as well.
I'm so grateful. Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye, Rashad.
Bye.